How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. With me this evening, my great friend, Mr. Mike Zappy. And as you can see by our hats, this is a baseball show. It is the National League East preview. This is a division that has been a big player in the World Series the past few years, going back to the Washington Nationals getting hot a few years back, defeating the Houston Astros in 7, which is, to my recollection and understanding, the only World Series where the home team didn't win one game.
Correct.
We have a New York Mets team that has signed 2 future Hall of Famers, one dating back to last year, Max Scherzer. They added Justin Verlander. Going to be very interesting to see how those two pair off and if they can compensate for some of the middle of that rotation that was lost but also replaced. We're going to elaborate on that. We've got a Philadelphia Phillies team that last year represented the National League in the World Series after finishing 3rd in the NL East. Quite the shocker there. And we have 2 Yankee legends out in Miami. I'm talking about Don Mattingly and Derek Jeter are both out. My question is, can the Marlins make an impact? We will find out about that. And we're going to just let this kind of roll through to give the viewers more or less what I just said. And I'm going to hit you guys right now with my personal predictions for how this division is going to play out. And I'm going to see if my guy Zappy has something or anything he feels that he wants to argue on.
All right. So, looking at the Nationals, like you said, this is just a team that's still fresh off of a World Series victory not too long ago.
They're like a figment and a fraction of what they used to be.
Exactly. And when you watch them, when you see Bryce Harper playing in the World Series with the Phillies, and then you see Juan Soto now over with the Padres and Max Scherzer up in with the Mets, it's like, what in the world happened with this Nationals team? And there's really nothing that excites me about this team. I think the exciting thing about this team would be, is this a team you can place a bet on that they're going to have the most losses in baseball? That's maybe a bet you could put on for this team.
Yeah, I would have to think them, Oakland,
Tigers,
the Reds. Yeah, I would say those are the 4 favorites. There might be someone who surprises us that really stinks this year. That happens occasionally, even to good teams that just have a terrible year. It does happen. But, not much to see here.
No, and then the Marlins, they're that team that you just don't know what they're going to do. Last year, they started off doing well. And, of course, as the season progressed, everything caught up to them, and then they finished where they finished.
And this is a team that made the postseason under Mattingly's watch a couple of years ago, but it was a 60-game year. So there was a lot of
variables. And
misdirected things that went on that year.
Yeah, and if it would have been a 60-game season this year, they would have finished first in the NL East this year again, So that's the beautiful thing about baseball is the good teams, a lot of the good teams don't usually hit their stride until the second half of the season.
The Phillies are evident of that. Even the Braves of 2 years ago, winning the World Series, So, there's definitely a lot of potential. I think one thing that we probably both agree on is that regardless of order, the Braves, Phillies, and Mets should all be in the playoffs. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, they all 3 of them have great pitching, great hitting, and a damn good manager. So, when you put those 3 together, you tend to have exactly what we have here, 3 teams within 3 games of each other. And, where my difference between you is I have the Braves winning as well, but I have them getting to 101 this year.
Now, let me ask you, how many teams do you have breaking the 100-win mark this year in all of baseball?
So it's 4 or 5 because I'm going to make an argument that I say the Braves are going to do it. I think the Padres are going to do it. They're the World Series champs. The Houston Astros, they've been doing this for the last 6 years nonstop of putting up high 90s or 100 wins. I think they're going to get a 100-win season again. I can see the Yankees getting a 100-win season this year, and I think the Dodgers will be one too, as well. That I think we could see 2 coming out of the NL West. I think we could see the Yankees, the Astros, and the Braves, and there could be possibly 2 coming out of the NL East.
I'm going to throw one at you. I have a feeling that only 2 teams are going to have 100-win seasons. One of them is the Padres. I'll say that now. The other is the team they played in the 98 World Series. I'm going with my New York Yankees. I think in the Dodgers case, the reason why I'm not going to go in on them to win over 100 is because I think the Dodgers, for the better part of 5-6 years, whatever have you, have been a bit of a paper tiger in the sense that, let's remind the viewers here, these divisions do not play each other like, Braves, Phillies, Braves, Mets, etc. You don't play each other 19 times this year. That got reduced to 12. And when I think about the beatdowns and the weaknesses of certain divisions, like in the NL West on the bottom, where you got your Rockies and your Diamondbacks, I do think that that's kind of padding the victories, the wins. Like a couple of years ago, the Giants had the best record in baseball, but lost a 1-game playoff. Things like that are going to happen sometimes, but
it balances that out, honestly, because if you take away 6 games versus, I guess we'll stick with this division, versus the Nationals, and you're going to get 6 games versus those 6 games split up, so it could be 2 against the Yankees, 2 against the Astros, and then 2 against the Dodgers.
Yeah, like for
just an example,
like the inner city rival,
right? Because we're going to see a lot more
Mets and Yanks. They play each other 2 different series, both of them being 2-game sets. I'm gonna talk about the Mets because these are the 3 teams that we have going to the playoffs. Each of us. There's a lot of room for positivity, but there's also a lot of room for concern. And somewhere in the middle, you find the truth of what this is going to be. Yes, Justin Verlander, reigning American League Cy Young winner now in the National League. You put him with Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer is a future Hall of Famer, as is Verlander. Verlander is essentially replacing Jacob deGrom, who your team picked up. The deGrom thing, yeah, that could be an upgrade because of deGrom's health situations. But this is the thing. It's not so much about the 1-2. And yes, I do factor in age, and that is a concern to me. This is also the first time that Justin Verlander is playing in the National League. But what does kind of concern me to a level with the Mets is after 1-2, your number 3s through 5 are questionable. You did pick up Quintana. He's a good pitcher. But do I necessarily think that he's better than last year's number 3 and Chris Bassett? I'm going to politely say I'm not sure, but I'm going to probably say no. Now you go to your number 4. You got the kid Senga from Japan, who is sensational, and he's got a lot of stuff. But I have said this about Japanese pitchers in the past. A legitimate concern is, while they are very talented, is the American workload. Now you have Carlos Carrasco, who is going to be more prominent in this back end of the staff, of the pitching rotation, with the departure of Taijuan Walker. And I thought Taijuan did an admirable job, kind of under the radar. So I guess a concern for me with these Mets is I am not convinced that 3 through 5 is better than what they've had over the course of the last few years. You could also throw in, going back a little deeper, a Noah Syndergaard from a couple of years ago, a guy who was a part of what they did. So that remains to be seen. I don't have evidence to say that it won't be better, but it is a concern. Now we want to talk about the positive side of things. You got a guy like Pete Alonso, who legitimately could have an MVP caliber season, be a home run champion potentially, help this team get to the next level. Francisco Lindor, after a shaky year 1, has definitely fit into embracing this organization. The fans love him. They're embracing him back. Jeff McNeil, grumblings about how his teammates feel about him. There has been a little bit of heat back and forth. You've got the return of Brandon Nimmo. You've got Mark Canha. They have hitters. This team can score runs. But I am concerned about the 3 through 5. Edwin Diaz coming off the best year of his career. But 2 years ago, he was not that sharp. Which Edwin Diaz are we going to get? They paid him, And these are all things.
That's the big thing right there, because as we've seen time and time again, whether in baseball, basketball, football, when a player is on a contract year, he tends to escalate his level of play just ever so slightly.
Hey, not that long ago, we did a football show with regard to franchise tags. We talked about Saquon Barkley on a previous show. So yes, that holds true. That does hold true.
And it's funny that you're talking about Taijuan Walker, because I think that him going to the Phillies is actually going to be what puts them over the top to be able to finish in second in that division. Because I do like Aaron Nola for the Phillies, and I like Zach Wheeler. But now with Taijuan Walker in their pitching rotation, I think that puts the Phillies ahead of the Mets. And I think the Phillies will finish with a 98 wins because of that this year. That to me is a big one, because you're talking about Taijuan Walker leading.
Something just dawned on me. I don't know how I did this, but on our NL Central show, I said that Taijuan Walker was a member of the Chicago Cubs.
Oh, did you? Oh, I didn't catch that one.
And not only did I say that, I said he was going to have the most wins on that team. That is hilarious. I don't know where that happened in my brain. Maybe I was traveling back to the free agency in baseball and he was talking to the Cubs, ultimately chose the Phillies. I don't know how I missed that. But at any rate, Taijuan Walker. Well, thank you, because now I know that Taijuan Walker is a member of the Philadelphia Phillies.
And that, to me, that's the difference between being two teams tied with 98 wins, 95 wins, whatever, versus the Phillies.
But you get where I'm going about that Mets back end of the rotation.
Yeah, no, I do.
A little concerning.
I do.
Because two guys can only compensate for so much. Because going back to last year, and this is something that I think a lot of Met fans aren't keeping tabs on. Not tabs, but they're not thinking about. DeGrom and Scherzer missed substantial amounts of time last year, especially DeGrom. The 3 through 5s carried them. The caliber. They moved up in the rotation. That goes without saying, but they carried them. And I say to myself, if one of these two older guys get hurt, are you going to put that on a rookie? Are you going to put that on Quintana? Are you going to put that on Carrasco? That worries me if I'm a Met fan.
Yeah, that would be the biggest worry for me as well. And because I will say, though, when we talk about a rookie, especially in baseball, I don't necessarily think Kodai Senga fits that mold, because while he is a rookie per MLB baseball terms, he's not a rookie to the professional game.
Oh, no, for sure. And like I said, I don't want to come off like I discriminate and prejudge Japanese pitchers because of the American workload, but my concern is just that, is that you take a guy like Masahiro Tanaka. How he survived so many years without getting Tommy John is beyond me, because he was definitely riding a thin line before choosing to go back to Japan. You take a player like Hideki Arabu, he's the worst case scenario. That was just, it never panned out. You take a guy like a Shohei Ohtani, sensational. This generation's Babe Ruth in a lot of people's eyes. But having said that, he does get hurt. And I'm
looking at Senga specifically. The kid's got a resume. He's got a very good resume playing for SoftBank in the Japanese league. He was 11-6 as a starter last year.
Hideki Nomo, another one that comes to my mind. A mixed bag.
I think he's going to excel well with the Mets. Remember, he was one of the players. Hideo Nomo was a team that Kodai Senga was a pitcher that I wanted this offseason. Then when we talk about, looking at the Mets Phillies, man,
that is the most heat in this division. I think we can say that. I mean,
I'll say this.
I personally feel that way.
You're talking about the back end of the Mets pitching. That could be the reason why they don't succeed. But then if you talk about the top two duo in baseball, the Mets actually fit that. They're right there, top three, between the Yankees, the Astros, and the.
Yeah, there's no reason why they shouldn't at least going in be anointed that it's a concern.
75.
It's a concern.
75 years.
I mean,
75 years combined.
Scherzer got hurt last year. It's a concern. And, Verlander, he came back better after he had the surgery. But there's no guarantees, especially as you get older, because when it goes fast. And that is a risk the Mets took. But to the Mets' defense, they did replace a more injury-prone pitcher than both these guys. And I've said on previous shows, I think Jacob deGrom is primed for a comeback season with the Texas Rangers. That will be revealed. Some greats of these teams, just going to throw this out here. Hank Aaron, Mike Schmidt, Tom Seaver, Josh Beckett, Gary Carter. Gary Carter actually can qualify for both the Mets and the Expos, who are now currently the Washington Nationals. I wasn't going to mention other guys on the Nationals because of the sheer fact that they're still in the league. Guys like Juan Soto, guys like Bryce Harper. Tom Seaver.
You're missing a big name, in my opinion.
And who would that be?
He was a catcher.
For you're talking about the Nationals?
For the Mets.
Catcher for the Mets that I'm missing? Oh, you're talking about Mike Piazza.
Piazza, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, well, my Met representative is Tom Seaver. I mean, there's a statue in front of the stadium of him.
Oh, you're doing one per team. Okay. I thought you were
the reason I brought up Gary Carter being a Met is that he was part of the 86 squad, but a lot of people forget he was a great Montreal Expo. Other great Expos, because, the Expos were around a lot longer than the Nats have been. Vlad Guerrero Sr.
Pedro Martinez.
Yes, sir. Randy Johnson.
Randy, that's right.
Yeah, they had some squad. The 94 strike, really terrible, because it looked like we would have had probably the third consecutive year that a Canadian team won, because the Blue Jays had won the previous 2 years back-to-back. But you would have got to see the Yankees play in the Expos. And as a Yankee fan, I humbly say it would have taken a gargantuan effort to beat them. My New York Yankees have actually my New York Yankees have played every team in this division in the World Series with the exception of the Washington Nationals, formerly the Expos, and had the strike of 94 not happened, that probably would have been. But, I see this as probably the closest division in all of baseball and going down to the wire, and that is part of my motivation as to why I didn't pick a 100-game winner, because I have a feeling that they're going to beat the crap out of each other, particularly those top three. And it's a long season, man. Like late in the year, guys are tired. They open up the 40-man rosters, and that's when you could catch losses to teams like the Nationals. You got guys coming up that are hungry. They're just excited to be in the show. So we saw that last year with the Mets. Games like that actually cost the Mets the division last year.
Yeah, but then you also look at they're only playing each other 12 times each.
Yeah, that's a distinct difference.
So, and then we're talking about they had two teams with 101 wins last year. It's because I just think I like the Mets. I think they're the have we been, is it the same story? Different tune.
I mean, I understand that Uncle Stevie is doing everything in his power to give the Mets fans a reason to believe in this team. Of course, there's the Buck Showalter curse. That's not even totally fair. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Showalter has had a propensity for being a great starter, not a great finisher. He helped the Yankees get started along with the help of Gene Stick, Michael, Bob Watson. He did a great job with two other organizations, Texas Rangers, the Baltimore Orioles. He even had a hand with the Diamondbacks. But when you think of finishing, that's unfortunately where he hasn't been on the right side of things. A phenomenal baseball man, a great manager. But, the Phillies, they're another question mark. They got hot last year. Is this a team that was a flash in the pan. They might be the most mysterious out of these three contenders, but I do think that what we saw in the second half of the Philly season last year is what we're going to see for a full season, because keep in mind, the managerial change with Joe Girardi is what really sprung them into relevance and getting hot. So I think they would have had a much sexier record had they replaced Girardi earlier. No knock on Joe Girardi. He's the last manager that won a World Series for my team, but I do think that some of his philosophies are a little outdated.
I like the Phillies, man. I think the Phillies scare me. The Phillies scare me because when you talk about this is the team that they were after Joe Girardi,
right?
They're a dangerously good team. And then you look at the fact that they have two guys on their lineup that could easily get you 40 home runs, even 50, between Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, for sure.
Guys,
they
when
do
they're
have,
on,
and they have arguably the best catcher in all of baseball, in JT Realmuto.
And then you throw in the fact that Jeff McNeil, he had the highest hitting average last year in baseball. If he can, he's going to get on base. So there's a lot of things about this Phillies team where I'm looking at them and I'm like,
well, with McNeil, he's one of those guys with the Mets that's confusing because it's like there have been some grumblings in the tabloids that McNeil doesn't get along well with the players. Like I said, this is things that I've heard from Mets superfan Richie Dorney. The Brandon Nimmo deal, I think they overpaid, to be honest with you. I would actually, when I was a guest on Sergio Rodriguez's show, that was part of one of the topics we spoke on. But I tend to believe that what's going to ultimately decide this division, because they could all score runs, is going to be who has the most reliable pitching down the stretch. And that leads me to this. Got some questions. Maybe you could throw some back at me. Who, if anyone, Zappy, can win the Cy Young in this particular division?
I mean, I think we can make a case for a few players off of the top three teams. You could make a case for a guy that's done it a few times in Justin Verlander.
Absolutely.
You can make a case for a Max Scherzer because he hasn't pitched the greatest as of late. He's still a hell of a good pitcher. You can make a case for Max Fried. You can make a case for Zach Wheeler. You can make a case for a lot of these guys. My pick this year out of this division for the National League Cy Young, I'm going to come back to this one because my pick was Verlander, but I'm thinking about the weather.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about that before. So that's why I hit the brakes, and I don't want to take the guy who I think you're going to pick. So I'm going to go to the home runs. The easy answer in this one is going to be Kyle Schwarber.
Okay.
To me, I did mention Ronald Acuna, but I'm actually going to go with Austin Riley.
Austin Riley, I could see him primed for a big year. Rebuttal to that, home runs, I'm going to go Pete Alonso. My Cy is going to be Max Fried. I have a vibe about him this year. But, getting back on the home run part of things, can anyone in this division challenge what Aaron Judge accomplished last year, and in many people's eyes, the true home run king, because obviously you have three Yankees that weren't linked to steroids, and you got everybody else essentially that was. And it doesn't necessarily have to be viewed as the record in my eyes to be a big deal and be special. It's a Yankee franchise record, and that's good enough for me. But anyone that can catch Judge's performance of last year, and it happens like that sometimes, where it's done and then right away it gets washed quick. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, and I think the one guy that actually can do it, I just said Austin Riley is a guy that I think that can lead that division in home runs. But when I really think about the one guy that I think can do it, I think it's the guy that was drafted at such a young age by the Washington Nationals that he was the guy that was going to be hitting 50 home runs every year. and that being Bryce Harper. But I think he's the guy where if he gets hot, he can easily, in my opinion, be flirting with the idea of getting to 63 home runs. 70, 73, 60. I guess what would be for the National League? 66? No, it would be 73.
73 by Bonds, and
by Bonds, yeah.
You have some marks with Sosa multiple times, different 60 home run seasons.
So I'm going to stick to the 62 because of what we've talked about with Aaron Judge. So yeah, I would say that Bryce Harper is the one guy that I believe that could do the 63 home runs in a year.
My prediction is Pete Alonso has the most home runs in this division. He tops out at 46, edging out Kyle Schwarber, who's going to hit like 43, I'm going to say 43. And I guess the most important question for you, who in this division will be in the World Series, possibly win it? Is anyone in this division going to the World Series this year?
I am going back to the Braves. I believe they're the team that can challenge my actual World Series team. I like the Braves a lot. I like their pitching. I like their hitting. You know, what we saw what they did 2 years ago when they had to overcome the Ronald Acuna injury, and then they had to overcome the
that was amazing
suspension.
They were able to do, yeah.
And you know, and then when I see what they lost. What's his
and
name?
You know, they also lost Freddie Freeman to the Dodgers.
Well, that's what I was saying. They lost
Matt Olson,
and that was a damn good pick.
And Freddie Freeman regrets that decision. That's a whole other conversation.
100%. And that's why I like this Braves team, because they have a lot of star talent all over their lineup.
Best baseball they've played consistently since the 90s, really. And, you know, they flirted with a World Series, almost a World Series berth a couple of years ago before they finally did it. This year, they blew a 3-1 lead against the Dodgers in the pandemic season. And then they got there after that. But
I say the Braves.
I'm going to go on a limb. The Braves, although not being a 100-win team on my list, you got them as a 100-win team. That I'm going to go on a limb and say that they will represent the National League in the World Series this year, even though they won't have the best record in the National League. That team is going to be playing out west.
In this division, Edwin Diaz is the closer. He's when you talk about this division, which closer, in your opinion, do you think could have more saves this year over Edwin Diaz? Because we are talking about three teams that are going to be right there, neck and neck.
I'm not going to say Hader because of the fact that I think that the Padres are going to have wider margins of victory. So I'm going to cross off Hader.
No, just this division alone.
This division alone, it's Edwin Diaz all day. Even if he's not as dominant as he was last year, I still think it's Edwin Diaz. Yeah, I agree with you there, but I said it earlier in the show. I alluded to the fact that he had kind of a crummy year 2 years ago, and then he was sensational last year. So the jury's still out, in my opinion. He did get paid, but you see the plight of a guy like Aroldis Chapman. We've seen these movies before where guys were dominant, and then in a matter of 2 years, they fell off. It's a very high leverage, high stress role. And it's the last 3 outs, sometimes the last 5 outs, 4 outs, if they bring him in early, are the hardest outs of the game. So it's a very high leverage, high stress role.
So you don't think the National League saves leader from last year could have more saves than Edwin Diaz this year?
I mean, he could.
And Kenley Jensen, I think he's going to have more saves than Diaz. Because, I think a lot of it goes with the fact that with Diaz or with the Mets, that 3-5 pitcher that you were alluding to earlier, that might take them out of a lot of the saves.
And then you also take into, you know what? You make a good point that might make me change my mind here.
Those saves turn into wins for the Mets, in my opinion.
Indeed, it could be. You know what? I'm gonna retract. I'm actually gonna agree with you there. I'm gonna go Jensen.
That's the
You
only
make a
other
good
thing.
point because it was funny when you asked me the question. He was in my mind, and then I'm like, eh, eh. I mean, I think Hader is more proven.
In the National League, yes,
Yeah, but just to
100%.
put it in a perspective, I think Hader's more proven than both these particular guys. And granted, he plays out west. But if we were even doing a whole National League one or a whole Major League one, I still wouldn't pick him for the sheer fact that I think the Padres are going to be kicking the ass, and there's going to be a lot of games where it's non-save situations where he might have to come in and get work. You know what I mean? In low leverage situations, which is a good thing. That's a good problem to have.
It's a very good problem to have.
I hope that Clay Holmes doesn't have that kind of high leverage situations this year. But I'm so happy Michael King's back, and we're bringing back Conley. I love it.
So who's your Triple Crown winner? If there's a player in the NL East that could do it, obviously you say you think Pete Alonso is going to lead in home runs, but can he lead with RBI and also
the batting average? The batting average is where
exactly.
he's not an option to me. If Bryce Harper is clicking on all cylinders, I'm going to say that he has the ability to. I'm also going to say another player would be Ronald Acuna. If I had to make a pick out of anybody in this particular division at this very moment, I'm going to go Acuna.
I'm going to go Austin Riley.
I like that shout.
I'm going to go.
I actually do. I think he's going to be due for a big year. I think the Braves are going to be a really great team this year. Overall, I think they're going to finish with the third best record in the National League. Actually, maybe second. But I do have them representing the league. They're going to be in the World Series. I feel staunch and strong about that. I really do.
I think it's between them and San Diego, honestly. I think the Dodgers, they've had their 5-year run and they haven't been able to do it. I think we're going to start seeing other teams that, and it could be the Mets. That's the other thing.
I've alluded to the paper tiger thing earlier in the show about the Dodgers. And like I said, if they played better in October, I wouldn't be saying stuff like that. But when your only championship is in the Mickey Mouse year, the Lakers and LA both won asterisk titles. The Dodgers with the pandemic, the Lakers with the pandemic in basketball. It was the same year. And I don't know, man. I made the point about the Diamondbacks and the Rockies being rather piss poor in the basement of that division perennially. And I do think, like I said, over the course with previous rules, 19 games, blah, blah, blah. But one of the ultimate things that evens everything out around the board, no matter who you root for, is the new rules. That's another aspect, and we're going to find out who it could affect. It could affect teams that we're used to seeing consistently win more so than teams that consistently lose. That is like what makes this so mysterious.
It's crazy where the other day we were talking about how the pitchers that have been doing this for a long time, they should be okay. But imagine that they're not, because they've been doing the same thing for 15 to 18 years, where we're seeing that Max Scherzer and we're seeing Justin Verlander struggle with the new rule because
it might come off as my own ignorance to a level, but I say it all the time, and no matter what sport we're speaking about, the best of the best always make adjustments and carry on. We saw it with Garrett Cole with the spider tack stuff. Still led the American League in strikeouts.
You know what's going to be crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. We're going to see a situation where it's an intentional walk and it's going to load the bases. And somehow, but during that intentional walk, the guy steps in and then it's an out, or he forgets to get back into the batter box.
It's gonna be a little painful in April and May. I'm gonna say that right now, but my personal opinion is, in the long run, this rule is not gonna stand.
I hope not. I mean, I know we've been saying this,
because at the end of the day, I'm not no math wizard, but I feel that in all relativity, you're saving 20 minutes. You're shaving, rather, 20 minutes. Is that 20 minutes gonna bring that many people to watch this stuff. Because the people
No,
that bitch about it are the people that already watch it. The people that don't watch it aren't bitching about it because they don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? And like, if you want to do better, you got to market your faces of the league better. It ain't about shaving 20 minutes off a game. That ain't what it's about. You got to market your players better.
here's where I think it'll also hurt, and laugh at me if you want on this one. Sports is here with the same mindset that any Fortune 500 company is here for, and that's to make money.
Right, of course.
And
make more money in less time.
now that right there, make more money in less time. So there's only two solutions to that. Because in my opinion, when you're looking at a situation like this where you're taking 20 to 30 minutes away from the game, that's
right.
20 to 30 minutes that are spread out throughout that you're taking away from the fans to spend that extra $15 on that beer or that $10 on that dog or whatever the case may be. So are we going to see a situation now? And this is me thinking of the financial standpoint because I go to a lot of games. Are we going to see that $15 beer turn into an $18 beer to make up for the losses? Because I think stuff like that, you would see baseball reconsider. Because
but this is the funny part, Zap. They're talking about expediting the game. But with the big bases, with the pitch clock, with introducing this all in the same year, with the emphasis on offense, what Major League Baseball may have actually done is made the game longer in a different way. Higher scores, more stealing bases. Maybe. It's going to be tougher to hold on. I mean, like I said, this is all spec. Like, we don't know until we truly see this. Yeah. Like, World Baseball Classic starting tonight. And, they're not using these rules.
I was going to say, they're not using the rules. So that's why we're seeing a normal 1-1 game right now in the bottom of the sixth with the Netherlands up to bat right now. So, yeah. Now, if we were seeing them use these adopted rules, then would this be the situation? So, yeah, I see from where you're coming from. If your plan is to speed up the game, but also speed up the scoring, which I'm sure that's the plan,
you can't have it both ways though, because so what delays the games like previously last year and forever? Guys stepping in and out of the box, guys doing the psych out game on the mound. So that's going to be replaced with more offense, more runs scored. You're still going to be in a similar situation where you're not expediting anything. So I guess the marketing strategy in that regard is that you want to score more action, more runs. I still think they're going about it the wrong way. Baseball's a beautiful game. Market your players better.
But when do you go get your beer? That's the truth. Because when I go get my beer, it's usually depending.
They're going to put us on the beer clock pretty soon.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to be. And maybe the idea is also to get people to drink less. I'm not condoning drinking alcohol whatsoever. I love having my beer. I love having my bourbon. But what I'm saying is if the game is sped up where now I don't want to go upstairs and miss something, you're going to need a lot more beer boys and hot dog kids and peanut.
Yeah, we might dude, you might laugh at this. When I'm thinking about getting rid of the umpires. Remember they were talking about that and doing the robotic thing? I'd feel a lot better about that than this pitch clock crap when you still got guys like Angel Hernandez still running around. That dude is more protected than a useless senator.
You're gonna have a robotic
or a useless congressperson,
Oh, God. It's pretty bad whenever 11-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 9-year-olds are out there watching baseball games of little league games and saying, oh, it looks like Angel Hernandez is up to the plate
when the kids
today
are talking
because
that
was a bad call. When I'm hearing my son say that stuff, I was like, how do you know who Angel Hernandez is? And he's
it's pretty funny.
This ump right here might be challenging Angel Hernandez to be the worst in America. And I'm like, oh, my God. But, hey, give us a robotic hot dog kid, that rookie of the year style,
I'm optimistic that, the players union is pretty powerful. And I have a feeling that if they truly, truly hate this crap, because this is the thing, and this is what makes it interesting. offensive players are gonna like this more because you're gonna get the pitcher in more vulnerable situations. The best of the best hitters do not succeed at a great rate in the grand scheme of things. 300 is 30% of the time. The remarkable Ted Williams season, when he hit over 400, that's 40% of the time. And these are the creme de la creme of hitters that succeed at that rate. So, I imagine that the batters might get a little irritated with the 8-second thing or 10-second, whatever have you. I'm still not 100% sure how many seconds. I got to start watching some of the spring training.
8 second. 8 second. The batter must be in the box before the 8th second. 8th second.
But just like you said not too long ago on a football show, just like there's ways to manipulate the salary cap, there's ways to manipulate that too. It's going to be very interesting, but in the long run, I do think the players' union is going to be like, nah, we're not with this shit. Whoa. Sorry. And Rob Manfred has to stop trying to recreate the wheel. Instead of ruining the game, what he should be doing is stop messing with the fans and keeping out the best to ever play the game for his own personal agendas. We saw it most recently in Cooperstown.
And it's crazy, too, because we're already seeing it with where they changed the no-shift rule.
Yeah.
But
there seems down the line.
But there seems to be a loophole now where they're moving. If, say, you've got a lefty hitting, they're moving the right fielder over. Or, if it's a righty, there's always going to be a loophole. So
they got to stop. Oh, God. We could go forever on this. But ultimately, getting back to the division, 3-team race in our eyes. 2 of these 3 have been in the last 2 World Series. The Mets are on the verge to emerge, possibly, maybe. We'll see. Going to be a lot of fun, man. The NL East going to be packed with action. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Oh, well, I'm going to ask, actually, with the addition of Carlos Correa, if that actually went through, do you think in your eyes that would have been the difference between the Mets actually making it to the World Series? Me neither.
I think it would have been worse. Another topic that Sergio and I spoke about months ago when I was on his show. He actually said that Correa is getting more recognized because of his World Series accolades than anything he did in the regular season when you factor in how many games he missed. Good friend of the show, Brett. We play in the same fantasy league. I think you're joining that league this year too, correct? Yeah. And every year when Correa would get drafted by Brett, I would break his balls and say, dude, that's a bad investment. He's going to get hurt all the time. And then he would return the favor with me because sometimes on purpose and sometimes just by pure chance, I always seem to end up with Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, but at least I'm thinking Correa went a little higher than where Stanton went too. So
and that's the value. But Brett did take Anthony Rizzo with his final pick, so I got to give him that one. Baseball is back, kids. World Baseball Classic is going down right now, too. Netherlands are tied. Is it still 1-1?
And no, Netherlands just took the lead. It's 2-1 right now in the bottom of the 6th.
All right.
And they have 2 outs. The count is 1-2. Runners on 2nd and 3rd. Netherlands are looking into opening it up. Did you know that also with this WBC, the pitchers are on a pitch count? They get 65 pitches. And after
I was not aware.
Yeah, me neither. I found that out today because Cuba had the Netherlands against the wall in the first inning. I forgot who their pitcher was. He had walked three batters in a row after the first out. And so you talk about being in a jam early. They were able to get out of it, but he was on his 25th pitch, I believe, and they had mentioned that he's got 40 pitches left, so he's already on a high pitch count.
Now, with relievers, is it the same rule as MLB where you got to face at least 3 batters, I'm assuming?
I believe so. I believe so.
Well, now that it's official, who is your pick to win the World Baseball Classic? I'm going with the DR.
I'm going with the United States.
I'll be rooting for the United States. My second team I'll be rooting for is Puerto Rico.
Dominican Republic, they lost one pitcher.
And Vlad is not participating now because he got hurt.
Yeah, so that Dominican Republic is strong. I mean, they're year in and year out. They are the class of baseball, in my opinion, especially when it comes to hitters.
But I do think the Americans have the edge on pitching.
Yeah, that's why I think that. All right, so now it's 4-1.
Okay, Netherlands are turning the corner. Yeah, baseball's back. Look, in the near future, we're going to be doing the American East show. Very much looking forward to that. The Yankees division, very dear to my heart. And we're going to be wrapping it up with the Western divisions. We're actually going to be doing the AL West last, out of fairness for the fact that those goddamn Houston Astros did win the World Series last year. So, it's only right that they're the final division. Try to keep it fair around here. But
I get to talk about my team last. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, and your team is on the rise, and we're gonna elaborate on that particular show. I am very excited to speak on the Yankees because I have so much to say. But
we need a mediator for this episode, and here's why. Because I'm going to present an argument for the Orioles, the Rays, the Blue Jays, and the Red Sox as to why I think they could beat the Yankees and have the Yankees finish. So I'm gonna get you heated up, and then
because the one disadvantage on this show, as opposed to what we didn't deal with in the NL and AL Central shows, it was one big show together with those two divisions. Is with only two people, it eliminates the possibility for start bench cut, but
I'm sure that one you can have a lot more people, considering Idris is also a Yankees fan.
Because I always say the magic number, or even like our movie show, you got to go odd number, or else we'll be tying and arguing forever. But we appreciate you guys watching. Baseball is back, and we're both picking the Braves to win this division. I didn't think we were going to agree on this, but we are indeed. Your World Series pick, I don't think you agree with me on that. That will be revealed on a later show. Until next time, he's Zappy. I am Richie, and we appreciate you guys watching.